Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I'll be running through my team selection ahead of FPL Game Week 2. Welcome back everyone. Before we dive in, 100 likes is the aim for this video. So if we could get anywhere close to that, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you enjoyed today's video, if you could hit subscribe as well. I'm aiming hopefully to get to 5k before the international break. A bit of a big target, but fingers crossed we can get close at the very least. In the meantime, let's take a quick look at my performance from Game Week 1, because of course that will colour my opinions going into Game Week 2. 53 points from me. It's not exactly the hottest start that I was hoping to get off to. A lot of you out there did a lot better than me, so do feel free to brag in the comments below about your Game Week 1 score. But overall, I'm not too displeased with my squad structure, and I think that's what's really important at this stage, rather than your overall score, because one game week just isn't that much information. I got, what was it, 4, maybe 5 if you count Tarkowski in terms of returners in Game Week 1. Tarkowski obviously picking up the DEFCON points, but got the clean sheet wipeout, which was a little bit frustrating. Sanchez picked up a late bonus point as well on top of his clean sheet and his save point, and Porro got a clean sheet alongside, of course, the standard opening day Salah goal. And Anderson, of course, unlucky maybe to only get 6 points. He had a really good game against Brentford, got the assist, nearly got a second assist, got a big chance that he missed, unfortunately, and was only 1 point, so 1 tackle, interception, clearance away from hitting the DEFCON threshold, which would have put him up to 8 points as well. So very happy with him. I'm happy generally with my squad structure. Of course, there are issues already. So looking around, Murillo not hitting DEFCON, in fact, not getting anywhere near, is maybe a talking point, although I think that's more to do with the opposition. Then into the midfield, Palmer, Fernandes, both with relatively quiet games by their standards. I'm a little bit more worried with Palmer than Fernandes, considering Fernandes was still getting fairly involved. I think he got half an XGI in that game, so I'm not too worried about him just yet. And then Ndiaye was probably the big worry from Game Week 1. To a lesser extent, Ollie Watkins as well, because he also only had like 1 shot on goal, wasn't very involved. But I think that was more down to the fact that Newcastle were very good on the day. And we've seen Ollie Watkins for several seasons now. We know that he does get a lot of attacking returns and his underlying data is usually very good. So I won't lose faith on him just yet. With Ndiaye, he was a bit of a hit and hope at 6.5 million. I wasn't expecting miracles, but I was expecting at least some sort of attacking threat. I don't think he had a shot on goal. I think he accumulated something like 0.02 XGI against Leeds, so a promoted club as well. Now, Leeds looked really good, but to what extent was that Leeds playing really well, and to what extent was it Everton just not being able to create anything in attacking phases? So I am a little bit worried about Ndiaye, but for now, I think generally speaking, I'm relatively happy with my squad structure. 53 points is not ideal, but again, do let me know how you got on in the comments below. And let's move on to some of the dilemmas that I'm faced with ahead of Game Week 2. Okay, so dilemma number 1 is whether or not I do immediately lose faith in my signing of Ndiaye. Obviously, Brighton at home for him in Game Week 2. And there is just such an easy route over to Reijnders from him that it does make this move pretty tempting. I talked about it in my transfer plans earlier on this week, and I got a mixed response in terms of who would probably advise making the move and who would just hold back for another week. Now, I am a fairly conservative manager, but I have been known to make early moves if the feeling takes me. Now, with Ndiaye, it is quite tempting, having seen what we did see in Game Week 1 against Leeds, to maybe just say, they're not going to create that much. Man City are going to create tons and tons of chances. I think they're expected the highest amount of goals over the next 6 game weeks, and Reijnders looked very heavily involved. And the thing that might have changed since before Game Week 1 to now is the expected minutes for Reijnders and also the average position he's taking up on the pitch. Now, we got that information from his performance against Wolves in Game Week 1. Is he going to repeat that week on week against the likes of Spurs up next, Brighton, Man United, Arsenal, or will he take more of a withdrawn role? Now, if you look at the underlying data for Reijnders on something like an FB ref over the last few years, he doesn't really do the defensive work at all. He's mainly involved in the box-to-box stuff and getting forward. He doesn't do a lot of the heavy lifting, so he's never going to realistically be playing as a true DM for Man City. So I think the main remaining question is, how nailed is he in that 11? How many minutes would we expect from him every single week? And if I feel like I've seen enough from that game week 1 fixture against Wolves to say he is good enough to be playing 90 minutes and he won't get rotated out for the likes of Foden, Cherky, Bernardo Silva at times as well. And obviously they've got other players coming back in. Marmoush won't get no minutes either, and that might push other players into Reijnders' position. Is that enough of a threat to his minutes that it makes him less of an immediate buy? I still think at 5.6, anything under like 7 million, he's probably still going to be good value if he plays anywhere near as well as he did against Wolves. But we don't expect 2 attacking returns every single week with this kind of underlying data, 0.33 XGI generated in the first game. And is it just worth waiting for one more week of information to see whether his minutes are indeed at any risk, whether Foden coming back in might change things, whether Cherky gets more minutes because he played well off the bench as well? And both Reijnders and Cherky, although not the same player by any means, they do operate in similar-ish areas. So look, I really do want Reijnders. I'm very tempted to make this move now because from what I saw, Ndiaye is just not going to generate the amount of chances that I'd want him to at 6.5 million. And when you can get someone a bit cheaper, save some money, and it will enable other moves, it does make this quite tempting to do. I think for now, I'm probably going to leave it one more week, see whether Everton just had a bad day at the office against Leeds. Brighton will be a slightly different story, obviously their first home game in the new stadium. And I do wonder if maybe there's a little bit of action bias creeping in, that now I've set my team from game week 1, I just feel the urge to do something, to change something. And I'm trying to resist that urge at the moment. Ndiaye's expected points are a bit higher. His goal projection, XGI projection from Solio Analytics over the next 5 game weeks matches Reijnders as well. And of course, he's on penalties. So maybe I'll just wait and see on this one for one more week. Reijnders isn't going to get to such a high price that I can't afford him after Spurs. So I think just leave it for now and hope that Reijnders has a fairly quiet game. Cross my fingers on that one, and that Ndiaye does come good. Maybe he gets a lucky penalty against Brighton and it all balances out over the first 2 game weeks. So the second dilemma I'm faced with ahead of game week 2 is a little bit of a benching headache, and that is which of these 3 defenders should I start and which 2 should I bench? Now, Porro away at Man City, Esteve Sunderland at home, and Anderson Man United at home is actually a fairly tight call, even if the expected points via Solio Analytics, again, link is in the description if you want to go check that out, doesn't suggest that it's actually that close at all. I would actually maybe slightly disagree with that, considering the team strength and maybe Porro's attacking upside in there as well. Now, Esteve comes out on top, 4.1 expected points, and that will be a mixture of the clean sheet odds, which is the best out of these 3 by quite a margin as well. They've got 34% chance at time of recording of a clean sheet against Sunderland at home, and he's also got a better opportunity at hitting that DEFCON threshold, 52%, over the likes of Anderson, who's only very slightly behind, and then Pedro Porro, who doesn't often get DEFCON. Although it is worth noting with Porro that in the matches, especially in pre-season and in the Super Cup, where Spurs did line up with a back 5 with those wing backs, and they were a little bit up against it, against better opposition, Porro was getting more defensive contributions. So maybe it's not impossible he hits that threshold against Man City, considering the strength of the opponent, but the clean sheet odds are much lower, so you are kind of relying on attacking returns. What I will say is Porro against Man City was a bit of a clutch player for me last season, so if I wanted to be a bit nostalgic about it, I might start him because he did so well against them last year, but that's not really based on any factual data. For those of you who don't remember, he scored, got a clean sheet in a 4-0 win, and obviously came away with a big double-digit return. But that shouldn't really weigh on my thinking too much because that's just a 1-game sample size. Esteve obviously didn't impress Burnley didn't impress in game week 1, but it was against Spurs. So against an opponent much more to their sort of level, will they be able to put up the defensive numbers that they did last season? I would probably back it, especially considering the DEFCON threshold is likely to be hit for Estev. So I'm kind of favouring him. Anderson is not far off either. He's kind of in the middle of both options in terms of the DEFCON, although he's pretty close to Estev, and the clean sheet potential. But having seen what I did see from Man United in game week 1, I do feel like they are going to score. And again, that is a subjective point. The markets suggest a 1 in 5 chance of Fulham keeping a clean sheet, and the expected points aren't too bad either. So honestly, if you don't have this much bench depth or this sort of headache this week, any of these three, I'd be happy enough to start. So for me, it's a matter of which one I prefer. And right now, I think I'm going to go with Estev for that combination of both the DEFCON threshold and the clean sheet potential being actually quite substantially ahead of the other two. The final question I'm asking myself ahead of game week 2 is whether or not I do want to hit the bench boost ahead of the deadline. And looking at the expected points on what I believe will be my bench ahead of game week 2, does make it at least a little bit tempting. Expected points of over 10 on a bench boost in a single game week, I'm not that bothered by. I think it's actually pretty decent. Sunderland at home for Dubravka. Anderson, again, we've already discussed Anderson and Porro. Man United at home for him, Porro away at Man City. If Porro were to get an attacking return away at Man City, this bench boost actually might look pretty decent. The main issue is Mark GW, final on my bench against Burnley away from home. Now, if he had any minutes whatsoever in game week 1, I might be a bit tempted because, again, if he comes off the bench, gets a 1-pointer, maybe he gets lucky with a goal, that would obviously cancel out Dubravka's clean sheet. But he would still be contributing at least something. Whereas, because he's not getting any minutes at the moment, I think it's probably worth me holding off for now. If I were to believe that for whatever reason he was starting, ideally I would have used my 1 free transfer to maybe move Porro onto someone like a Lacroix or Munoz at the same sort of price, and it does just notch this bench boost expected points up a little bit. Munoz would probably go into my starting 11 and Estev would drop down to my bench, but the expected points would be around 12 or 13 rather than 10. And I do think that later on in the season, with these players, I will naturally be able to find another bench boost opportunity. Basically, whenever Burnley have a decent home fixture, I'll be happy enough to play it because most weeks, Estev and Dubravka, 2 Burnley assets, will be sat on my bench, not causing me any sort of worries either most weeks because they're both just 4 million. I'm not spending any money on them. But I do still think later on down the line, there's going to be another opportunity to use it where maybe I've got a few more free transfers. And if Mark GW is still an issue, then I can move him on without having to take a hit to do so. At this price point at 4.5 million, there's no other alternatives. So I would have to take a hit considering I've only got 1 free transfer to sort that out. And that kind of negates the benefit of most of the bench boost. So for me, I'm going to leave it. I always knew that it was a bit of a problematic one to potentially bench boost in game week 2, not knowing the minutes of Dubravka and GW especially. Dubravka did start, GW didn't, so that's fine. We'll wait for later on in the season. Right then, so this video is kindly sponsored by Club, which is another fantasy game that I'm playing this season. I also played it last year quite a bit, so if you can see my squad on the left-hand side here, I've built it up a fair bit because I've been playing for a little while and you can sort of upgrade your squad, upgrade your stadium as you go along. So in that sense, it is a little bit like a football manager in the sense that it's a little bit more than FPL. There's more that you can do on the app. And I have to say, I'm on it about 20 to 30 times a day at the moment. Now, one interesting aspect of this compared to FPL is you can't just pick whichever players you like at random. You've got to effectively get them from agent Manny. Now, I don't have an agent call booked in with Manny right now, but I'm going to just get it done with now for the purposes of this video. So I'm going to give him a call and see who we've got. Now, again, you can pack certain levels of players. Hopefully it's not base. Hopefully it's not core. It is core, unfortunately. Midfielder, Man City. Maybe it's someone... Nah, I mean, Oscar Bob, to be fair, for 78, he's going to be cheap on the wages. That means I can afford him, although my squad is full at the moment, so I can decide that one later. But he's a good player, and I quite like him as a cheap alternative. As you can see, I'm already over my salary cap. I need to make some cutbacks to my squad to be able to afford it for game week 2. But I'm still liking the look of it. Let me know who you would maybe bin off for Oscar Bob in this. And of course, if you wanted to get involved, it is completely free to do so. All of the links are in the description below. And if you're already playing, make sure you join my mini league. I'm currently second in it, I think. Yep, second of my mini league right now. So Super Frankie Lampard's ahead of me, but only by a point. Are you capable of also overtaking me in this as well as an FPL? If you think you are, please feel free to join me in my mini league. The code is just to my left-hand side as well. Right then, so on to my full team selection ahead of game week 2. I am looking at rolling the transfer at time of recording. A little bit tempted to move Ndiaye on for Reijnders, so let's see how much FOMO I get in the last 24 hours or so. But for now, I am thinking that I'm probably going to roll it, give Ndiaye and the rest of my 11 another week before starting to make any moves and make any decisions based on a little bit of a bigger data sample than we've currently got. Now, obviously, in goal, I've got a bit of a dilemma whether to start Dubravka at home to Sunderland. Obviously, we've talked about the clean sheet odds there in terms of Esteve, or go with Sanchez away at West Ham. The market odds are currently suggesting that Chelsea are slightly more likely to keep a clean sheet, and I just back the quality of the goalkeeper and team there. So I do think that it's one where I want to maybe not have too many eggs in one basket. If I go with the double Burnley defence, I'm going to be very, very disappointed in myself if they concede early to Sunderland. At least this way, I'm hedging my bet slightly. And I do think that Chelsea have a decent chance of a clean sheet away at West Ham as well. So Sanchez will get the number 1 spot for me. Dubravka, if Sanchez is injured or whatever, I'm very happy with him off the bench. Moving into defence, I am going to start Esteve ahead of Porro and Anderson. It's a tight call. I do back Porro to maybe get an attacking return. Obviously, he's getting forward in that back 5 when they're playing against stronger opposition, and he's on set pieces for now as well. But Esteve's expected points alongside the clean sheets and the defensive contribution percentages slightly veer me towards him over the other two. Tarkowski and Murillo are my defensive contributions monsters. Hopefully one of them can keep a clean sheet this week, but if not, I think they'll have to do enough defending against both of those opponents that they should hit that threshold. Similarly, in my midfield, I've got Anderson, who again, I think will have to be working hard away at Selhurst Park. So I expect him to get plenty of recoveries, plenty of tackles in as well. So I'm hoping that he also hits the threshold. And he's still on set pieces. He's still getting good minutes. So as long as he is, I'm very happy with him in my 11. I do have an eye on the fact that Nottingham Forest are signing so many players, especially in midfield at the moment. And it looks like they've signed Douglas Luiz on top of McAtee. And both of them are pretty good set piece takers. So if Anderson loses those set pieces, long term, that could be a bit more problematic for me. But I don't expect that to happen right now. So it's not a transfer I need to make today. And Crystal Palace is not an easy fixture by any means, but it's not so bad that I wouldn't expect him to do something, especially with the defensive contributions added in. Now, moving across to my more expensive midfielders, I've already spoken about Ndiaye. He's on maybe thin ice at the moment, but I'm going to give him the Brighton game, I think, and fingers crossed he gets lucky with a penalty. Then my 3 expensive midfielders, Salah, Palmer, Fernandes. Now, I've done a full video on captaincy that I put out yesterday, so do go check that out if you get the chance on my breakdown of the top captaincy options. I think it is pretty 50-50 between Salah and Palmer. Neither of them are my preferred choice for captain this week, but I don't have my favourite two. So I think in times where I'm a little bit on the fence and not completely sure that there is a standout pick, Mo Salah will normally take the armband for me because we've got so many seasons of data. He always finds a way to score. So even against Newcastle away, who did make it very, very difficult for Aston Villa, I still back Liverpool's attack to find a way through at times. I'm not expecting a really high scoring game here, but all Salah needs is one opportunity, one shot, to quote Eminem accidentally there, and hopefully he will get something half decent. Palmer, I also don't mind. Poor performance in game week 1, but again, a little bit on thin ice, a bit like Ndiaye as well, especially considering the price point. And because I haven't seen too much from him that is that positive in the last 6 months almost, that does maybe push me away from captaincy. If he'd put out a good performance in game week 1, or played slightly further on the right-hand side where he gets more shots away, he gets more involved in the attacking phases, finds more spaces as well, then maybe it'd be enough for me to be convinced to captain him over Salah. But because I haven't seen that, I'm going to go with what I know and go with Mo Salah, I think. Moving into my forward line, Watkins and Strand Larson, neither returned in game week 1, but Watkins, we know him as a player. We know that he's going to get chances eventually, and Aston Villa aren't a bad side. I was even slightly tempted to put the captaincy armband on him, but considering we don't know he's on penalties and he could get taken off a little bit early, I don't think that's likely, but it's more likely than with Palmer or Salah. and because we didn't see much of him in game week 1 either, it's enough for me to be happy with just owning him against his old club Brentford. He's got a very good record against them. I wouldn't lose faith just yet, and fingers crossed that after game week 2, we're going to be much happier owning a player who is expensive, but we know the pedigree that he holds in the Premier League. So I think, again, I'm preaching patience on Ollie Watkins for now. Finally, Strand Larsen, I think actually very good performance against Man City considering the circumstances. Obviously, you're not expecting him to get a ton of the ball at home to Man City. Maybe against Bournemouth, he'll see a little bit more of it, get a few more chances. But from what we did see, he looked heavily involved. He looked athletic. He looked fully fit, and I do think he's still going to be great value for money at 6.5 million. So I'm happy enough generally with my squad. There are a couple of iffy parts in there that I want a couple more game weeks worth of data on, but I'm not going to be afraid to make moves in the next couple of game weeks if I see something I don't like, especially from the likes of Palmer or Ndiaye in game week 2. Now, as we reach the end of today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you've got any questions with your team selection ahead of game week 2, feel free to drop them in the comments below, or join me live this evening, Thursday evening that is, where I will do a pre-deadline stream, so always the night before, where we'll run through all your questions, we'll run through any final dilemmas, some of the press conference news as well, and we'll have a bit of fun as we approach the deadline. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great game week 2, and I'll see you on the other side.